USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation has the privilege of serving as the commissioning committee for the 4th U.S. Navy ship to be named in honor of our great city. But our organization has a broader vision and mission than many commissioning committees. Where most such organizations complete their work when a ship joins the fleet, our organization will continue to support the ship and her crew during service life, and upon completion of her service, we seek to return our ship to Cleveland to serve as a memorial and museum to all 4 ships that will have carried the city's name around the globe. In addition, the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation has quickly established itself as the leading naval organization in Greater Cleveland. We are in the process of finalizing plans to install and dedicate the Cleveland Lone Sailor Monument in Voinovich Bicentennial Park toward the end of this summer. On your tables, you'll find some information on plaques that could be part of that memorial, that will be part of it, that you could be part of if you wish to purchase those, as well as information and a save the date for that dedication in September and the Navy Ball, which will take place for the 3rd time and the 249th time on behalf of our Navy at the Aviator out near the airport later this year, October 10th. And we're reaching Cleveland's youth with our innovative STEAM Stars educational program, an initiative for middle and high school students to develop critical skills, explore career paths, and have fun learning. Although the foundation has had a number of events over the last few years, both here and in Marinette, Wisconsin, where the ship is being constructed, and in Jacksonville, Florida, where the crew is currently stationed, this is the first event officially directly related to the future USS Cleveland that is taking place here in our city. In taking this next step along the path, a path that has been longer than many of us expected, as we weathered a global pandemic and other delays in the ship's construction, we hope that you will join us in this ongoing effort to inform the community about this very special civic initiative. It truly is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to connect this place we call home and the Naval Service. We're joined this morning by several special guests that I'd like to introduce at this time. Please join me in welcoming an admiral-level sponsor of the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation, the president of Ohio CAT, Mr. Ken Taylor. We're also joined by the representatives of several military units. You've just seen the 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines from Brook Park, Ohio. Also with us this morning are representatives from the U.S. Coast Guard 9th District Headquarters located here in Cleveland, and the Navy Talent Acquisition Group, the recruiters, down in the Ohio River Valley. Welcome to all this morning. It's now my pleasure to introduce the other members of our leadership team. What began with 5 of us serving as volunteers in a conference room at Burke Lakefront Airport in the fall of 2018 has developed into a flourishing nonprofit organization. Would the members of our board of directors who are with us this morning please rise and remain standing? And now would our honorary directors please join them and remain standing. If you or your organization are donors to the foundation, please rise and accept our gratitude. And would our terrific team of volunteers please rise at this time as well? And now, if there's anyone left, please stand up. Come on, participate in the party. We're really pleased that you're all here this morning. We invite all Clevelanders to stand up and be a part of our exciting mission. That mission is to send USS Cleveland to the fleet with the greatest start possible, to support the ship and her crew throughout her service life, and to welcome her home to Cleveland at the completion of her naval service. Thank you all. Please be seated. And now I'm pleased to introduce an outstanding trio for a leadership conversation. Since the foundation's inception, we have eagerly awaited the designation of our ship's first commanding officer. That appointment finally took place last fall, and on December 18th, 2023, Commander Bruce Hallett reported and assumed command. In the meantime, we've had the pleasure of working with 2 command senior chiefs, and now a master chief, as the crew has grown to more than 100 sailors. Recently promoted to Master Chief is Carla Bellamy, who we welcome this morning as well, who's doing a fantastic job as the Command Master Chief. And finally, to moderate this conversation with these two terrific U.S. Navy sailors is a retired Navy sailor who spent 22 years in uniform, first as a cryptologic specialist and then as a Navy career counselor, my colleague, Courtney Smerdell, our Director of Operations. Skipper, Master Chief, Courtney, would you join us in the front?
Hi, good morning. We were thinking of different ways to introduce these guys and thought the easiest and simplest way was just ask them some questions that I think you guys might have and get their answers. So we'll get started. Welcome to Cleveland. Thanks for coming. Have either of you ever been to Cleveland before? This is my first. Okay. Okay. What are you guys doing here this weekend?
Whatever you have us doing.
So honestly, yes, we're here obviously for the Crest Unveiling, but more than that, we hadn't had a chance to come and kind of meet everybody, see the city, get a feel for where we're going to commission the ship. And I think ultimately what we really want to do is help the foundation, the commissioning committee, kind of energize the city to get it ready for when we sail that ship down here next summer. So that's what I think our ultimate goal is, and to play with some Legos.
Okay. Where are you guys from originally, and why did you join the Navy?
Originally, I'm from Chesterfield, South Carolina, a really small town. I tell people all the time, if you end up there, you are definitely lost. So, and I joined the Navy because paying for college just wasn't a thing that my family I knew could afford, and I thought I was going to drive a submarine. At that time, women were not allowed on submarines. And then I realized that's probably not a good idea either. So here I am today.
I also am from a really small town. I was actually born in Boston, but I only spent the first week of my life there. And I grew up and lived in Howland, Maine. Very small school. I graduated with about 40 people in my graduating class. I'm the oldest of 10 kids. What was the rest of that? Oh, yeah. Why did I join the Navy? Very similar to Master Chief. School was at the bottom of my priority list. I was a Boy Scout. I loved Boy Scouts, loved the outdoors. Sorry, if you would speak in the mic. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. Here I am thinking that I was being nice and loud for everybody, but not for the live feed. All right, so again, born in Boston, grew up in Maine, oldest of 10 kids. Joined the Navy because school was kind of at the bottom of my priorities, obviously, when I was a teenager. And even in 1998, college was still expensive. Being the oldest of 10, I was going to have to pay for that by myself. So I'd always loved the ocean. My dad was in the Coast Guard. My grandfather was a merchant marine, and loved sailing. And there was just kind of a calling. So I actually tried to join at 14. The recruiters at the Rockland Lobster Festival kind of laughed and said, come back in a few years. But in 1997, I did the delayed enlistment program, and then I actually went to boot camp in July of 1998 after I graduated high school.
Okay, so you went to boot camp. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you became an officer, you went enlisted, and...
So funny story that I tell my sailors, I did the delayed enlistment program, but then I did see if I could do ROTC. And so I went to applied for ROTC and got an interview. And I went to the college campus and met with the very nice lieutenant that was there. He was a sub-officer. I don't hold that against them. But when we got done with the interview, he looked at me and very politely said, you're just not officer material. And I said, okay, thank you much. And I left the ROTC building and continued on with my enlistment. I think during my first enlistment at some point, it started showing up on my evals that I should do the Seaman Admiral program. And I sat down with the XO, and he recommended that I do that. And I said, all right, if that's what you guys want, I'll submit an application. So I did an application, and think it was about 2001, we were off the coast of Kuwait, and I found out that I got picked up. So I had a decision to make whether I wanted to do that and stay in the Navy, and that's what I wound up choosing.
So that's how you became an officer, but what did you start as rating wise? And then can you tell us a little bit about like your career path up to this point?
I feel like Carla's getting out of a lot of this. I'll just say that. All right, so I came in as an electronics technician. I was an Eagle Scout, so I love the fact that I got bumped up in boot camp automatically to an E2. So that was great. I was getting, really high pay then. And then I, made automatic E4, which was even better. So I was on the USS Ashland for my first tour, and I did a couple deployments on there. And by the time I got ready to commission, I was an E6. So, and I went to school in 2003 is when I started the Seaman Admiral program. What was the rest? Sorry. Oh, my career progression. Okay. So I went back to Maine to go to school. I went to Maine Maritime Academy, where I studied engineering on the chief engineer side. And then when I got my commission, the Navy, as it usually does, said, we're really happy that you studied engineering. You're going to do all ops stuff in your career. So I've never been down in the engineering plant at all, or used that really. So I went back to an LSD. I went to the USS Oak Hill, where I did my first 2 tours. I was the CIC officer, and then I was Traino. Also kind of in there, I got to go do a deployment with Fibron 6 on the USS Nassau, which was a really good time. And then I went back to shore duty, where I went back to Maine Maritime as a ROTC instructor, which was one of my most favorite tours, highly rewarding. And after that, went to department head school, where I went to the USS Fort Sherman, where I was the ops officer. And then I went to Desron 22, where I was N3, which is the ops officer. And then after that, I went to Italy, where I was in the N35 shop, and I did future ops as a maritime planner. That was another highly rewarding tour professionally. A lot of hard work, and of course my wife loved the fact that we went to Italy. It was her idea, so she was really happy to go there, and we got to do some travel before COVID hit. And then after that, I was selected for XOCO, and wound up picking the USS Detroit. So I did my XO tour on the USS Detroit, and then we just decommissioned her. And sometime as I was the XO, I had a really great conversation with the now Commodore of LCS Ron 2, Commodore Haney. At the time, he was a Commodore of Surface Div. And he said, I think I have a great assignment for you, since we're going to decom Detroit. I think I want you to be the commanding officer of the Cleveland. And so that's how I wound up here.
Okay, now it's your turn. So you're now a Command Master Chief, but can you talk about your career progression from boot camp to now? That works.
So I originally joined as a hospital corpsman. So I joined in 2001. So you're old. I did a week out of high school, and a week later I was on my way to boot camp. First time ever on a plane, and I cried, boy. But best decision ever. So boot camp in Great Lakes at the time. Hospital Corpsman A School was in Great Lakes as well. Left there. I chose Surge Tech as my NEC, so got to go over to Camp Pendleton through FMTB at the time, or FMSS. Now it's FMTB. So, and then I did Surge Tech C School down at Balboa, and then my first tour was 2nd Med Battalion in Camp Lejeune. So I did 3 years with the Marines there. And I left there, went to Naval Health Clinic, Charleston. At this time, I had done nothing with surgery. So, again, the Navy and its infinite wisdom, you spend money, and that's not the job you do. So, did that, worked in the dermatology clinic, was by far the best job I ever had. Left there, 2009, went to Yokosuka, Japan, and I deployed in 2011 with the ERSS as part of the anti-piracy ops out in 5th Fleet. So we did that. Came back, went to Naval Hospital Portsmouth, where I was in the OR, but not really in the OR. Then I got to go over and work in DNS, all the wards. That became my leadership role. Left there, I picked up chief, left, and went to the USS Harry S. Truman as the dental DLCPO. I know nothing about teeth. So couldn't help out at all. But had amazing tour. Sailors were amazing. It was just great professionally, that's for sure. And we left there and went to Camp Lejeune again. We were supposed to go to Okinawa, but my husband picked up Chief, so that, you know, worst decision ever. But great professional decision. But we went to Camp Lejeune, and there I was in charge of medical services, so all of the clinics, ER, all of that good stuff. COVID hit, and boy, our work picked up, so that was definitely a tour for the books. And then I picked up Command Senior Chief in 2023, actually. I had orders to USS Billings, but Cleveland chose me, so, because en route, they were like, oh, you're going to Cleveland. And I was like, okay, if that's what you say. So got there in May. In August, I went out to meet the USS Detroit. Their SEL picked up Master Chief, so I went out, relieved her, and brought that ship back. And now here I am, ending my tour with Cleveland. So, yeah.
We're sad about that. You guys both mentioned that you were on the Detroit. For you that don't know, that's one of our sister ships, the Littoral Combat Freedom Variant. And I guess my question would be, what was that like? Where did you go? What did you do? Because I think a lot of people want to know what littoral combat vessels are doing out there. So.
So for me, it was definitely a different world. Coming from a carrier, having been on DDGs, coming to an LCS, and it's like, what is this? And everybody's like, oh, you got to wash your own dishes. And I'm like, that's okay. I wash dishes at home. Like, that's no big deal. But going there and seeing how the crew, every single person on the crew is what makes this ship go. You can't do anything without one single person. And to me, the best thing was even the captain. If we were doing all hands, the captain was out there doing all hands, moving boxes. So we operated down in 4th Fleet. Our tasking was drug ops with the Coast Guard. But somehow Detroit evaded all drug ops. Something always came up, and they were like, oh, you got to go here, you got to go there. So I think Little Rock got all of the drug cases while we were out there. But nonetheless, we did get a few detainees, so it was definitely very fun. I met the ship in Ponce. They were on their 2-week maintenance break while I was there, and we went down to Aruba, which was nice, and we went to San Juan as well. So,
yeah. So down in 4th Fleet, that like Master Chief was saying, primarily we go down there in order to bring on a leadette from the Coast Guard and do counter drug ops. A lot of people don't realize just how big 4th Fleet is, how much area it encompasses. It is quite large. And so it was interesting to take the ship from, when I got to the Detroit, it was still on the pier and needed a lot of work from some previous maintenance issues that had happened. And taking the ship to get it all repaired, knowing that we were going to do a final deployment before it decommissioned, and that was our goal, was really interesting. It was a lot of hard work. But if there's one thing I learned since I've come into the LCS community, is that the sailors in the LCS community are like no other sailors in the Navy. They're highly trained, as all sailors are, but we cross-train them in a way that's different on any other ship, because the crew size is so small that you have to rely on all these sailors, and you have to rely on them to do multiple jobs. Many times they're in 3 sections duty, both in port and then when we're underway. And they do an incredible, phenomenal job, and they're so hardworking. And when we go down there, what makes us successful is the way that we all come together as a team. And that's, with the leadette that's on board, we usually bring them on board about the week before we go down, and we do some training together. We kind of iron that out and become a really good team together. We also bring on our Helo Squadron a couple weeks before we go down, and we have to learn how to work together with them. So you're bringing on roughly, in that case, it was around 40 sailors, kind of last minute, between the aviation det and the leadette, that they had to figure out how to integrate into that ship, and they did a fantastic job, and they did it flawlessly. We do get to go to some exotic places, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, quite a bit, but there are some other good places. I know when I was on there, we went to San Juan, Ponce, and then we got to go to Barbados.
which was interesting. Unfortunately, Carla and I didn't get to work together when we were on Detroit. I got hurt and actually had to leave the ship just as she was arriving, and we were actually really looking forward to kind of working together as a preview of our time on the Cleveland. But yeah, LCS it's actually a fantastic platform to be on, a lot of fun to drive, very versatile. The only thing is, as the XOCO, you're constantly stressed about how much gas do I have. So that kind of runs our life, just like going down the interstate when you're trying to travel across the country is how much gas and where's the next gas station. So.
Great. So you guys are here this weekend. There's 7 of your sailors joining us later this afternoon. I guess my question is, so we do sailor support and we try to do what we can from afar, but what is it that the sailors are doing down in Jacksonville right now? Are they training? Are they deploying? Like, what is it their day-to-day looks like?
So some people would probably say that they do nothing on their day-to-day. But our sailors are various TADs. They are always TAD, actually. If they're in the building, it's more so probably because they have a school coming up. So some of them have up to a year or 18 months pipeline in order to become ACC 100 to take the ship out. So a lot of them are going to schools every other month. Some are 3 to 6 month schools. TADs, ship taskings come every week. So every week we're trying to say, no, we can't send them somewhere. They have this, they have that, but they're going to support other ships on their missions because, again, as you all know, there is, or you may not know, there is definitely a shortage of sailors manning ships across the fleet. So they look at us and they're like, well, you have 100 bodies sitting here in a building, but not looking at what our sailors actually have going on. So they are definitely out supporting different missions at any given time. And then they're just enjoying their family, waiting for Cleveland to commission, because once that happens, they will go into definitely a hectic workload of probably every 3-day duty and just keeping the ship up. So.
Yeah, I think Master Chief pretty much hit on all the big points, but the thing is, it speaks back to when I talked about cross training and just how much we rely on a lesser number of sailors on this platform to do the same amount of jobs that you would do on any other platform in the Navy. And they do have a long pipeline. They have a lot of schools that they go to. And, we also have a really great training facility down in Mayport called the Littoral Training Facility, the LTF. And it's a very effective way of training our sailors where they have a bridge simulator that links up with the combat systems simulator. There's also an engineering side where they can do training down there. So they spend time in there learning how to drive the ship, how to operate the ship, and learning how to work as a team without ever actually being on the ship yet. And the other piece with our sailors is we encourage them and we send them out. A lot of them go TAD to other LCS platforms. Some of them even go out to DDGs in order to kind of help supplement those crews when they're going out. So they do spend time out on deployment, seeing what's going on the ships. And they work really, really hard. And I do think it is important, and I told all of our sailors in our very first meeting that this is the opportunity for them to get some family time. Because as you know, once you get on that ship, it gets busy. We're going to take them up to Marionette when it's time to bring the ship back around, and we're going to keep them away from home for a little mini deployment of about 4 months. So when they are kind of in the building in between training, I do encourage them to spend time with family and make sure that they've got everything squared away, because when it comes time for us to go, then I really need them to be focused on that. So we do want them to get time with their family now.
You mentioned Marionette, and can you talk about what that looks like? Does all the crew move up there? What are you guys doing up there? How does it look to prepare? When does the Navy get custody of the ship? Those sorts of things.
The way it generally works, and this is my first pre-com, so I'm learning as we're going as well with all this. There's 2 other ships up there right now that are waiting to commission, the Nantucket and the Beloit, and that's another thing that we do with our sailors is we'll send them up there to do things on board Nantucket and Beloit as they go through this. But essentially, as the ship gets towards its kind of completion date, they set builder sea trials and acceptance trials. And we'll send up a couple of our sailors for those builder sea trials where they'll actually, and I'll go up as well, and we'll go out on the ship, and the shipyard will put it through its paces with Navy on board. And once that's done, they'll do an acceptance trials where the Navy actually says, okay, everything's working the way that it's supposed to, you know, we're gonna accept this ship. From acceptance trials is really where we start to look at going up as a whole crew. So based on when we're looking at acceptance trials, there'll be a delivery date when the shipyard actually delivers the ship to the Navy. We'll have done a bunch of training beforehand as a crew down in Mayport that will allow us to then go up to the ship. Usually we'll send up a chunk of the engineers first, as well as probably the triad and a couple officers. And we'll start running the ship through its paces kind of on the pier. Then we'll eventually move the entire crew up. For about the first month, they tend to stay in a hotel while we move everything on the ship that needs to be on there for us to be able to live on the ship. So thinking, you know, food, stuff like that, the stuff you need to actually be able to live on board the ship. After about a month of prep, we'll move the crew on the ship. And that's really at that point where now we're running around, and if there's a switch, we're flipping it. If there's a lever, we're pulling it. If there's a dial, we're turning it. And we're making sure that every single thing on that ship works the way that it's supposed to. And that'll be hand in hand with the shipyard as they make sure that they're fixing or correcting anything we find that's not right. We'll get a couple opportunities to take the ship out on the Great Lakes and get familiar with it. And then we'll have sail away, which is when we'll leave Marionette and we'll come down here to Cleveland, where we'll commission. And then after commissioning, we'll take it around and bring it down to Mayport. And that whole process from when we leave to when we arrive in Mayport will take us roughly 4 months.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions. My daughter came up with these because she wanted some fun ones. So she wanted to know what your favorite food is when you're underway.
Ooh. I was gonna say that it depends. It really all depends on how good your CSs are. Because a lot of times, yes, the Navy gives us menu cards, but if they're really good cooks, they get in and they experiment. So it really all depends. But probably Taco Tuesday and Burger Wednesday. Those would be my 2.
Yeah, I agree. Burger, Navy Burger Day is really great, especially when the CSs, the culinary specialists, kind of go outside the box and they do grilled onions and bacon and all the other fixings that you can put on there. And then I kind of like pizza night's usually good when we do pizza and wings. It can be hit or miss, but when it's a hit, it's good.
Okay, and then the last question was, what was your favorite port or duty station and why?
So my favorite duty station for sure was being on the carrier. First tour as a chief and just really learning how the Navy operated, because as a hospital corpsman being in hospitals, you only see that side of it. But being on a carrier and really seeing how every rate just about of the Navy works, and launching aircraft in the middle of the ocean, not even launching, recovering aircraft, because if they didn't hit the wire, they had to circle back around. So to see that, and to especially see that at night, was very interesting. And my best port, it was probably Aruba. I mean, you can't beat a tropical vacation for free, so it was amazing.
So I've only been the CO since December, so forgive me because I'm not going to say this tour yet. It was actually my XO tour in Detroit. It was a very rewarding tour. I could probably talk for 20, 30 minutes about what that crew accomplished and how difficult it was to get that ship ready, and then what we accomplished on deployment. And I think that's what made that so far my most rewarding tour. I am positive that this one will definitely eclipse it. Did you see what I did there? Yeah. All right. But as of right now, that was my favorite. As far as ports, I'm kind of split on 2, so I'm going to go for 2. Marmaris, Turkey was fantastic, and then Split, Croatia was another one that was they're really tight there. So.
Okay, and then I have one last little push, if you will. It's when we were up for a visit in Marionette, they do wing sauces. and I want, if you can remember what your favorite wing sauce was. So each LCS, as they are up in Marinette doing their training, pick a wing sauce, and it's on the menu, and you get to try it. So all 14 of them so far, and we tried quite a lot of them. So what was your favorite and why? And then for you all to keep in mind kind of a Cleveland flavor, so that when these guys go up, they have an idea of what they want their wing sauce to taste like.
I don't, but I'm pretty sure we did a honey lemon pepper or something. That was probably mine. And I just love lemon pepper wings anyways, but there was some they should take off the menu too. But you know, those ships are proud of it. So Cleveland, we need your help so that ours will be, you know, top of the line with little stars beside it.
Yeah, I don't also remember all of them, but for some reason the Indianapolis one is in my head. I think I might have liked that one. Yeah, of course ours is going to be better.
Yeah, we're thinking some combo of stadium mustard or something like that, but if you guys just get your thinking caps on, they've got a little while before they go up there. But anyways, I hope you enjoy this little question and answer and getting to know these guys a little bit better. Thank you for your time, and we'll continue on with the program. Thank you.
Skipper, Master Chief, thanks so much for your insights, your observations, hopefully entertaining and informative for our audience, especially our civilian friends here. And Courtney, thanks for facilitating that great dialogue and more importantly, for everything that you do as my partner for the foundation each day. And now I have the privilege of introducing a man who shares two of my passions, American history and baseball. And he gets to spend his days doing one of those as his vocation. He recently began his 43rd season with Major League Baseball and his 33rd with our beloved ball club here in town. And I know that he and I join all Clevelanders in looking forward to a warm, dry home opener. He's no longer responsible for that technically, as he was during most of his time with the club on Monday after the eclipse. Please join me in welcoming my friend and the chairman of the board of the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation, Mr. Jim Folk.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks to all of you for being here today. Really an honor to be here with you all. Skipper, Master Chief, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, there's an Army guy here someplace, two Army guys here someplace. So it really is great to be here. But supporters, friends, fellow board members, this is really one more of the series of milestones that we get to embark upon. I first had the pleasure to meet Robin Modley back in the fall of 2018, shortly after the ship was named, and right about the time a group of us got together over at a little conference room at Burke Airport and decided to join the commissioning committee, which is now the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation. Robin immediately impressed with her genuine heart, her humility, her sincerity, and her role as a true servant leader. She quickly became not only a trusted advisor, but really a very close friend. Most of you know, but the sponsor of the U.S. Navy ship is mostly known for breaking the champagne bottle on the bow at the christening as the boat goes into the waves. Make no mistake, Jose Ramirez would be very proud of the mighty swing that our sponsor made. We won't talk about the dent in the side that resulted from that. But the sponsor is also a permanent member of the crew. They contribute their character and their personality to the ship and act as a supporter and advocate for the benefit and the welfare of the ship and the crew. We are really very, very fortunate to have Robin serve as the ship's sponsor for the future USS Cleveland. Her personality, character, their support of the ship and the crew will lift all who serve aboard the Cleveland and should inspire a spirit of cohesiveness and unity throughout the ship, throughout her service life. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome our dear friend, the ship sponsor for the USS Cleveland, Mrs. Robin Motley.
Wow. Thank you. Good morning. It's really good to see you all here this morning. I know I speak on behalf of our foundation when I say that it means so much to us that you have offered your morning. Your time is valuable. We appreciate it. We thank you for being here to learn more about our ship and the people behind it. I emphasize the word people because they are my priority as a ship sponsor. As you know, my role is to support the crew. My focus is on getting to know the needs of each individual in that crew. But my purpose for doing that is to ultimately support Commander Hallett and his leadership team as they carry out the overall mission of the Navy. Simply put, if morale is high, performance trends accordingly. I am in a position to learn about the lives of the crew, hear their stories, and take some form of action on their behalf. I will simply be their advocate, their nurturer, their encourager, and hopefully they'll call me friend. But my goal is to provide anything it takes to positively impact their sea life and support their loved ones at home. This could be emails, voicemails, cards, letters. Maybe they need a brand new coffee pot on board the ship because they don't like the one they have. I can make that happen. Or maybe somewhere in some foreign country when they need a morale boosting mid-deployment break, I might be able to make it possible to support some festivity along the way. We're all going down to help enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner with their families this fall. Things like that is what my focus is going to be on. Basically, I'm going to be their soft heart in the middle of that steel vessel. If I may be so bold, and with all due respect, please allow me to remind you that our great ship, LCS 31, with all its updated systems and innovative technology, named after our great city, the future USS Cleveland, is still, at the end of the day, a ship. However, it is the sailors on that ship that give it life. It's the sailors that carry out the mission of the Navy. These sailors are real people with complicated lives, yet they have to function at the highest standard to meet the demands of the mission, no matter what else is going on in their personal lives. They understand the powerful reality of service, not self. As a ship sponsor, I want to be there to attend to their self while they focus on their service to our country. I am honored to be in a position to ensure that their needs are being heard when they are unable to prioritize themselves or their loved ones over the many tasks at hand. I believe that sailors do what is required when they are inspired. It is my strong desire to inspire our sailors with the spirit of the people of Cleveland. You represent those people. You are a community of Clevelanders that are kind and caring, but also strong in your convictions. You are enthusiastically generous with everyone, but you hold patriots like these sailors especially close to your heart. You are strong, confident leaders that still remain collaborative team players. These are the traits I want the crew to grasp. And once the crew gets to know a typical Cleveland sports fans, they will be inspired by your passion and relentless determination to persevere no matter what is going on, and we all know things go wrong. But these are the traits that the community of Clevelanders will pass along to the community of sailors on board the future USS Cleveland. And these sailors, our sailors, will remember your spirit Clevelanders never give up the ship. And the sailors of the USS Cleveland will never give up our ship. By your presence here today, I believe you boldly embody that philosophy as well. So on behalf of the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation, I simply want to thank you for your generosity and your support for this effort. Our nation will be better and safer because of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Modley. And ma'am, if you wouldn't mind joining us again with Commander Hallett and Master Chief and Courtney, if you would head to the other easel. We've got one on each end of the room here so folks can see this up close and personal. I'll let you take a Master Chief with Courtney there. We'll wait a moment for everybody to get to their assigned station. All right, team, would you please do the honor of revealing for us the ship Crest of the future USS Cleveland? Thank you. And Bruce, before you take your seat, you're next up. So Commander Hallett will now join us, and as is customary at this particular ceremony, he will offer the explanation of all the symbolism. Both the foundation and the crew had key roles in designing the different components of the ship Crest. So, Commander?
Good morning. It is my absolute pleasure to be here representing the outstanding sailors of the Pre-Commissioning Unit Cleveland for the official unveiling of our ship's Crest. While he isn't here this morning, I want to acknowledge the hard work of one of my fantastic sailors, NM1 Tyler Dunham, in the design of the ship's Crest. MN1 will be flying in later today to join us for this weekend's events, and I can tell you that he is extremely proud to be such a large part of the PCU Cleveland legacy. Navy tradition requires that each ship of the U.S. Navy have its own distinct coat of arms, which reflects both the heritage embodied in the ship's namesake and in its future mission objectives. Unique in design for each ship, the crest will represent the ship's identity throughout its service life and helps foster unity and esprit de corps for the crew. The crest is most commonly found on uniform items of the ship's crew and will also be used on the ship's coin and the ceremonial quarterdeck. This tradition is so important that the Secretary of the Navy has established instructions for the design and approval of the ship's crest. In those instructions, it states, the prospective commanding officer, or PCO, is responsible for the design, development, and production of the ship's crest. The crest design and production process is time-intensive and should be initiated by the PCO immediately upon reporting to the PEO on official PCO orders to ensure the highest quality product in time to support early establishment of the ship's command identity and for use in the ship's ceremonial events. The ship's crest belongs to the ship and her crew, and the crest does not change unless the ship is recommissioned with a different name. In designing the crest, features of the namesake city are selected and associated with naval history to design a symbol that both the ship's crew and the namesake city can share. In the case of Cleveland, a city with a rich nautical history of her own, the history and landmarks of Cleveland have been incorporated into the crest in order to create this unifying symbol for the crew and for its namesake city. So on the shield, blue and gold are the traditional colors of the U.S. Navy. The wavy flaunches denote the two bodies of water that Cleveland sits on, the south shore of Lake Erie and the banks of the Cayuga River, which I hope I said right. The red lightning bolts represent the speed of the USS Cleveland and are colored red to symbolize warfighting capabilities. The sun and splendor represents the new energy found in modern-day Cleveland due to the collaboration and creativity of its citizens. The sun has 16 rays, marking the USS Cleveland as the 16th Freedom-class littoral combat ship. The open book and winged rod of Asclepius symbolizes Cleveland as the home of world-renowned museums, prestigious universities, and nationally recognized hospitals. On the crest, the wreath adopts the first named metal and color from the shield and blazon. The anvil and red stripe refer to the ship's motto, Forge a Legacy, and together symbolize Cleveland's former steel and heavy manufacturing industries. The skyline represents the people, achievements, history, and future of Cleveland, Ohio. The fret represents the newly revitalized Cleveland Public Square, which was part of the original 1796 town plan. The 4 stars indicate the 4 United States Navy vessels named for the city. The supporters, the crossed swords and cutlass, symbolize the officers and enlisted crew that sail the ship, demonstrating teamwork and cooperation by the naval team of the USS Cleveland. On the seal, the coat of arms as blazoned in full color on a white oval within a dark blue designated band, edged with a gold roped border and bearing the name USS Cleveland on the top and LCS 31 at the base. The ship's motto, Forge a Legacy, denotes the plan to bring the ship to life at commissioning, excellence during service life, and the return of the ship to Cleveland upon retirement to serve as an enduring memorial in a museum. The motto itself is another unique and extremely important part of the ship's identity. Usually the motto is included in the crest design, but this is not a strict rule. The ship's motto connects with the ship and the crew and what they do. The motto colors the actions and accomplishments of a Navy ship. These are words of consequence and importance. To me, this motto speaks loudly. Forge a legacy. It is direct, and in itself, it is an order to the ship's crew. An order that, when dissected, tells them to forge, which means to form or make, especially by concentrated effort, a lasting culture of military excellence for those that will follow us, and that they will be proud to continue, and those around us will seek to emulate. It's a mandate to me to construct a bond, a lasting and unbreakable connection between the city of Cleveland and the current and future crews of our ship. It's a rallying cry for this, the start of our journey together today, as we come together to solidify the identity of our ship, strengthen the connection with our commissioning committee, and build the bond between the USS Cleveland and her namesake city as our legacy. I'd like to close by thanking you all for being here and your continued support for PCU Cleveland. I look forward to sailing our ship into the premier port on the Great Lakes, docking her here in beautiful Cleveland, and introducing you all to the 16th and final Freedom Class littoral combat ship that we will commission together, the USS Cleveland. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commander Hallett. And thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning for this special program. We appreciate all of your involvement and interest in the USS Cleveland Legacy Foundation and the future USS Cleveland. We wish you a fine Navy Day. Thank you.